The pale moon rises.
The forest breathed in the cold night air, its skeletal branches clawing at the sky. A full moon, pale as a corpse's skin, hung heavy over the village of Blackthorn, casting long, twisted shadows. The wind carried the scent of damp earth and rust iron, old blood. Elias Vane stumbled through the undergrowth, his boots sinking into the mud. His breath came in ragged gasps, his side burning where the beast had torn into him. The wound wept crimson, staining his shirt black in the moonlight. He had been foolish to wander so far from the village after dusk, but desperation made men reckless. His sister, Leora, had fallen ill, and the old herbalist had spoken of a rare root that grew deep in the woods. A cure, a hope. Now, he was prey, something, moved in the darkness, a shift of shadow, a whisper of leaves. Elias froze, his pulse hammering in his throat. Then he heard it, the low, guttural growl that slithered between the trees like a living thing. His blood turned to ice. The wolf stepped into the moonlight. It was monstrous, larger than any natural beast, its fur white as bone and matted with old gore. Its eyes burned gold, pupils slitted like a serpent's. Saliva dripped from its jaws, each fang glinting like a dagger. Elias staggered back, his heel catching on a root. He fell hard, the impact sending fresh agony through his ribs. The wolf advanced, its muzzle wrinkling in a silent snarl. He could smell its breath-rotten meat and copper. He had no weapon, no escape. The beast lunged. Elias threw up his arms, but the wolf's weight crushed him into the earth. Teeth sank into his shoulder, shredding flesh with a wet, tearing sound. He screamed, the sound swallowed by the forest. Claws raked his chest, peeling him open. Blood splattered the leaves. The snow-white fur of the beast now streaked red. Then, as suddenly as it had attacked, the wolf released him. It stepped back, its muzzle dripping, watching as Elias writhed in the dirt. His vision swam, the edges darkening. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him was the wolf's eyes, not the eyes of a mindless predator, but something older, something knowing. And then, the moon swallowed him whole.
A howl in the dark.
Elias woke in agony. His bones felt like shattered glass, grinding beneath his skin with every ragged breath. The world was too bright, too loud, the rustle of leaves like thunder, the scent of damp earth and rotting meat flooding his nostrils, until he gagged. His mouth tasted of blood and something bitter, metallic. The wound on his shoulder had closed, but the flesh around it was fever-hot, veins blackening like ink spilled under his skin. He dragged himself upright, his muscles screaming. The forest was silent, no birds, no wind, only the oppressive weight of the moon, watching. Then came the hunger. It clawed at his stomach, a gnawing void that made his teeth ache. His vision pulsed red at the edges. The scent of something living, warm, beating, bleeding drifted through the trees. A deer, perhaps, or a traveler. The thought should have sickened him. Instead, his mouth watered. A howl tore through the night, not from the distance, from him. His throat burned as the sound ripped free, inhuman and echoing. Somewhere deep in the woods, another howl answered, then another. A chorus of voices, hungry and hunting. The village bell began to toll. Blackthorn was waking, lanterns flickering to life in the windows. They had heard the wolves. They would come with torches and blades, with fear in their hearts and silver in their hands. Elias ran. His body moved with unnatural speed, branches whipping at his face as he crashed through the undergrowth. His hands' claws dug into the earth, propelling him forward. The hunger twisted deeper, a beast gnawing at his ribs. He could smell them now, the villagers. Their sweat, their fear, their blood. A shadow moved ahead. A hunter, crossbow raised. Elias didn't think. He lunged. The man's scream was cut short as teeth met flesh. Hot copper filled Elias's mouth, the taste sending a shudder of pleasure through him even as his mind recoiled. The body hit the ground with a wet thud, the hunter's throat torn open, His eyes wide with terror, Elias staggered back, his hands dripping. What had he done? The howls grew closer, and this time they were calling his name.
The mark of the beast.
Elias plunged his hands into the icy stream, scrubbing furiously as the hunter's blood swirled in dark tendrils through the water. His reflection stared back at him wild-eyed, lips still smeared crimson, teeth sharp. The wound on his shoulder throbbed, its edges now pulsing with an unnatural heat. The veins around it had turned black, spider webbing across his chest, like cracks in drying mud. The mark of the beast. A low growl rumbled in his chest, unbidden. His muscles twitched with restless energy, every nerve screaming for the hunt, for the taste of warm flesh between his teeth. He clenched his jaw until his gums ached, fighting the hunger gnawing at his insides. But the forest had other plans. A twig snapped behind him. Elias whirled, his body moving with predatory grace he didn't recognize. 3 figures emerged from the shadows, men, but not men. Their eyes glowed amber in the dark, their pastures coiled like springs. The tallest bared his teeth in something between a grin and a snarl. "You reek of fear, little wolf." Elias stumbled back, but the others circled him, cutting off escape. Their scent was overwhelming musk and iron, the tang of old blood clinging to their skin. The leader grabbed his arm, fingers digging into the blackened veins. Pain lanced through Elias, white hot and blinding. "The white wolf marked you," the man hissed. "His bite is in your blood now. And when the moon is full again, it will tear you apart from the inside out." Elias wrenched free, his vision swimming. The world tilted, the trees stretching into grotesque shapes. The pack watched, grinning, as he collapsed to his knees, his bones beginning to shift beneath his skin. The change was coming, and there was no stopping it.
Secrets of Silver Hollow.
Elias awoke in darkness. The air was thick with the stench of wet fur and old blood. His body ached as if he'd been broken and remade, every muscle screaming in protest as he pushed himself up from the dirt floor. The wound on his shoulder had healed into an angry, knotted scar, the black veins now pulsing faintly with each ragged breath. Moonlight filtered through cracks in the rough-hewn walls of the den, illuminating the shapes of sleeping wolves, some in fur, some in flesh, all twisted together in a nightmare of teeth and claws. At the far end of the cavern, a massive figure sat motionless on a throne of antlers and bones. The alpha's eyes glowed, like molten gold in the dark, fixed on Elias. With a predator's patience, the air grew heavier under that gaze, thick with the promise of violence. Around them, the pack stirred, sensing the tension. Elias's throat burned with thirst, not for water, but for something darker. The memory of the hunter's blood on his tongue sent a shudder through him, equal parts revulsion and hunger. The alpha stood, his movements unnaturally fluid. He circled Elias like a wolf sizing up wounded prey, his nostrils flaring. He inhaled the scent of fear. When he spoke, his voice was a growl that vibrated in Elias's bones. "You carry the white wolf's curse now. It will consume you, or you will master it." A clawed hand grabbed Elias's wrist, dragging him toward the mouth of the den. Outside, the forest stretched out under the pale moon, alive with shadows. "Run," the alpha commanded. "The hunt begins at dawn." And then Elias was alone, the howls of the pack rising behind him like a death knell.
The first transformation.
Moonlight poured through the canopy like liquid silver, drenching Elias's trembling body as he staggered through the undergrowth. Every breath came in ragged, animalistic gasps. His skin burned as if boiling from within, the blackened veins pulsing like living things beneath his flesh. The alpha's warning echoed in his skull. "Hunt begins at dawn, but the moon had other plans for him tonight." Bones cracked, a scream tore from Elias's throat as his spine twisted with a wet, splintering sound. His fingers curled into claws, nails, blackening and elongating, shredding through his own skin as they pushed outward. Blood slicked his arms, hot and thick, the scent of it only feeding the monstrous hunger roaring in his gut. His jaw ached, teeth sharpening, reshaping canines splitting through bleeding gums as his face contorted into something inhuman. The forest blurred. Scents exploded in his nostrils, damp earth, rotting leaves, the musk of deer hiding nearby. His hearing sharpened until he could hear the frantic flutter of a rabbit's heart 36 paces away. The pain was unbearable, glorious, necessary, his body breaking apart to make way for the beast falling to all fours. Elias howled as his final human thoughts drowned under the rising tide of instinct. His clothes ripped apart as muscle and sinew expanded, white fur bursting through his skin in blood-matted tufts. The transformation was not clean, not beautiful. It was a massacre of flesh, a violent rebirth into something monstrous. When it ended, the wolf stood where the man had fallen. Blood dripped from its maw. The hunt had begun.
Hunted by the pack.
The scent of blood and burning pitch filled the night as Elias crashed through the undergrowth, his white fur matted with gore. The transformation had left him rivalry muscle singing with predatory power, every sense screaming with heightened awareness, but the thrill of the hunt curdled in his gut as new scents assaulted him, oiled steel, gunpowder, and the acrid stench of fear. Torches flickered between the trees, men's voices carried through the darkness, their words warped by the beast's ears into meaningless noise. Only their terror mattered, thick and cloying in the air, making his jaws salivate. A crossbow bolt whistled past his ear, embedding itself in a tree with a wet thunk, silver-tipped, deadly. Then came the howls, not human, not prey. The pack had come for him. Shadows moved through the moonlit forest massive, looping shapes flowing between the trees with unnatural grace. Their eyes glowed amber in the dark, their muzzles streaked with fresh blood. The largest, a brindleford monster with scars crisscrossing its snout, lunged at Elias without warning. Claws raked his flank, sending hot blood spraying across the ferns. Elias twisted away, his own fangs snapping at empty air as the pack circled. This wasn't a hunt, it was an execution. The alpha had sent them to test him, to break him, to see if the white wolf's bite had made him worthy or weak. Another wolf charged. Elias met it mid-leap, their bodies colliding with a crunch of bone. His teeth found fur, then flesh, then the hot rush of blood over his tongue. The taste sent a jolt through him, horror and shame warring in his chest, even as his claws tore deeper. Somewhere in the village, a church bell began to toll. The pack froze. Then, as one, they melted back into the shadows, leaving Elias panting and blooded in the moonlight. The message was clear. This was only the beginning.
The Witch of Blackthorn.
The wound in Elias's flank burned like hellfire as he dragged himself through the marsh, his white fur now streaked black with mud and blood. The pack's claws had left deep gashes that refused to heal, each step sending fresh waves of agony through his body. But pain was nothing compared to the hunger gnawing at his insides, a hunger that no longer craved mere flesh, but something darker, more potent. The scent of damp earth and rotting herbs guided him to the crooked hut at the edge of the Blackthorn bog. The villagers whispered about this place in hushed tones, about the woman who lived there, half crone, half legend, who knew the secrets of the moon and the beasts that danced beneath it. The door hung open like a gaping maw, swaying gently. In the windless night, inside, the air was thick with the smoke of burning bones and dried mushrooms. Jars lined the shelves, their murky contents shifting sluggishly, things with too many eyes, things that still pulsed with life. The witch sat hunched over a cauldron, her skeletal fingers stirring a thick, dark liquid that smelled of copper and gravé dirt. She didn't turn as Elias entered, but her voice slithered through the gloom like a living thing. The white wolves. Whelp comes crawling to my door. Elias's hackles rose at the words, but the pain kept him from growling. The witch finally turned, her face a patchwork of scars and tattoos, her left eye milky white and dead. The right one gleamed with a natural awareness, seeing too much, knowing too much. You want the curse lifted, she crooned, but some chains cannot be broken. Boy, only reshaped. Her knife flashed in the firelight before Elias could react. The blade bit deep into his foreleg, drawing a river of black-tinged blood that she caught in a clay bowl. As his blood mixed with the cauldron's brew, the liquid erupted into flames that burned blue and cold. "The price is paid," the witch whispered, as shadows began to writhe along the walls. "Now you will see." The vision hit him like a physical blow. Memories not his own, of ancient pacts written in blood, of a wolf that was never meant to be, of the true horror lurking beneath Silver Hollow. When Elias came back to himself, he was on all fours, vomiting bile and blood, the witch's laughter ringing in his ears. The path ahead was clear now, and it led straight into the heart of darkness.
Blood and bone memories.
Elias convulsed on the forest floor, his claws digging deep furrows into the damp earth as the witch's vision tore through his mind like a wildfire. Images flashed behind his ice-knot memories, but something older, something carved into his blood and bones, a great white wolf running beneath the blood-red moon. A circle of stones slick with sacrifice, the taste of human flesh between his fangs not as prey, but as something far worse. His body arched violently as another wave of agony racked his form. The wound from the witch's blade burned with unnatural heat, black tendrils spreading up, his foreleg like creeping vines. His vision swam, the forest melting into something else, a moonlit clearing where shadows moved with purpose, where the air smelled of iron and old magic. The first memory struck with the force of a physical blow. He saw himself not himself standing at the center of the stone circle, his white fur matted with gore. Around him lay the broken bodies of villagers, their throats torn open, their eyes wide with terror. The taste of their blood filled his mouth, rich and intoxicating. The power of it thrummed through his veins, dark and sweet and endless. Then came the voicey whisper that slithered through his mind like a serpent. "You were always meant to be this." Elias howled, the sound tearing from his throat in a ragged scream. His claws lengthened, his fangs ached, his bones shifting beneath his skin as the truth settled into his marrow. This was no simple curse. The white wolf's blood had been in him before the bite. The witch hadn't shown him a vision, she had awoken something that had been sleeping inside him all along. And it was hungry, the scent of human flesh carried on the wind close. So close. His sister's face flashed in his mind, her smile, her warmth. But the beast within didn't see a sister. It saw prey. Elias's claws sank into the earth as he fought against the rising tide of bloodlust. The memories weren't just showing him the past, they were showing him his future.
The Alpha's Challenge.
The clearing stank of old blood and wet fur. Moonlight cut through the trees like silver blades, illuminating the circle of massive wolves surrounding Elias. Their eyes burned with feral intelligence, their muzzles stained crimson from recent kills. At the center stood the Alpha, his brindle-furred bulk casting a monstrous shadow across the blood-stained earth. Elias's muscles trembled not from fear, but from the raw power coursing through his veins. The witch's revelation had awakened something primal within him, something that made his claws itch and his fangs ache. The blackened veins along his arms pulsed with every heartbeat, whispering promises of violence. The Alpha lunged without warning, bone cracked as they collided, rolling in a whirlwind of teeth and claws. Elias's shoulder exploded in white-hot pain as the Alpha's fangs found purchase, tearing through muscle with savage precision. Blood sprayed across the dirt, the coppery scent flooding Elias's nostrils, igniting the hunger deeper. He retaliated. With a snarl, his claws raking across the Alpha's exposed belly. Hot entrails spilled between his fingers, steaming in the night air. The pack howled in response, some in fury, others in twisted delight. This was their way. Only the strongest would lead. The Alpha staggered back, his golden eyes blazing with renewed fury. Blood poured from his wounds, but his strength didn't waver. He charged again, this time slamming Elias into the earth with enough force to knock the breath from his lungs. Jagged pain lanced through Elias's ribs as something snapped. For a heartbeat, the world blurred. Then the memories surged, the witch's vision, the stone circle, the power of the white wolf's blood. Elias's body moved without thought, his jaws clamped around the alpha's throat, fangs sinking deep, deeper, until hot blood flooded his mouth. The taste was electric, intoxicating, filling him with a strength that wasn't entirely his own. With a final, brutal twist, he tore out the alpha's throat. Silence fell over the clearing. The pack lowered their heads in submission as Elias rose, the alpha's blood dripping from his maw. The power thrummed through him, dark and sweet and endless, but victory came with a price. The hunger grew stronger, and the moon was still high.
Moonlit betrayals.
The scent of the dead alpha's blood still clung to Elias's fur as he surveyed his new pack from atop the blood-stained rock. Moonlight painted their lowered muzzles silver, their submission evident in every twitch of their ears, every averted gaze. Yet beneath the surface, something darker stirred. The air crackled with tension, thick with the musk of wolves holding their breath. Then the wind shifted. A new scent slithered through the clearing. Fear, yes, but beneath it, something sharper. Treachery. Elias's claws flexed into the stone as the first attack came. Not from the front, where the challengers should have emerged, but from behind. Razor-sharp fangs sank into his hind leg, twisting viciously before he could react. Pain exploded up his spine as muscle tore. His blood splattered across the watching pack, the metallic tang sending them into a frenzy. The brindle-furred beta, who had struck first, lunged again, her yellowed fangs aimed for his throat. Elias barely twisted away in time, feeling the rush of air as her jaws snapped shut where his windpipe had been. Around them, the pack erupted into chaos. Some leapt to his defense, others turned on their own, while the cleverest hung back waiting to see who would bleed out first. This wasn't a challenge. This was slaughter. Elias's vision tinted red as the white wolf's power surged through him. His retaliatory strike tore open the beta's flank, spilling her steaming guts onto the frost-covered earth. Her dying howl pierced the night, but the damage was done. The pack's loyalty had shattered like ice underfoot. From the tree line, glowing eyes watched too many to count. The outcasts, the rebels, the wolves who had never bowed to the old alpha. They moved as one, a tide of fur and fury, their hunger palpable. Elias bared his bloodied fangs, let them come. The first body hit the ground before the moon reached its zenith.
The curse's origin.
Blood dripped from Elias's wounds as he limped through the skeletal trees, each step leaving crimson prints in the snow. The pack war had left him ravaged, his white fur matted with gore, his ribs screaming where fangs had pierced through to bone. But deeper than the physical wounds burned the truth that had driven him back to the witch's hut. This curse was no accident. It had a beginning, a purpose. The hut loomed ahead, its crook silhouette black against the moonlit snow. No, smoke rose from its chimney tonight. The door hung open, swaying gently on rusted hinges, inviting him into the darkness within. The stench of death hit him first, thick and cloying, coating his tongue with the taste of rotting meat. Then came the whispers, not from the shadows, but from inside his own skull, slithering through his mind like serpents. You came back. The witch's corpse sat upright in her chair, her milky eyes staring through him. Her throat had been torn out recently, by the look of the still wet blood staining her chest. But her lips moved all the same, forming words that echoed with unnatural resonance. They always come back to the beginning. The dirt floor trembled. Bones pushed up through the soil, not human bones, but something far older. A massive skull emerged, its elongated snout and curved fangs unmistakable. The white wolf. Elias's vision shuttered into fragments of memory. A moon darker than blood, a circle of chanting figures draped in wolf pelts, a sacrifice screaming as fangs tore into his flesh. A man who wore Elias's face. The truth struck him, a silver blade to the heart. This was no curse, it was an inheritance. The witch's corpse grinned with blackened teeth as the ancient skull at her feet began to glow.
The howling storm.
The wind screamed through the trees like a dying animal, bending ancient oaks until their roots tore from the earth. Lightning split the sky, illuminating Elias's hunched form. He staggered through the maelstrom. The white wolf's skull burned. Against his chest, where he'd hung it around his neck, a cursed talisman searing his flesh with every step. Blood ran in rivulets down his arms, not from wounds, but from within, forced out through his pores, by the ancient power awakening in his marrow. His vision swam with overlapping images: the present storm, the past sacrifice, the future carnage yet to come. The lines between them blurred like rainwater mixing with blood in the mud behind him. The howls began, not just his pack now, but others, wolves from forgotten territories, drawn by the primal call of the storm and the scent of destiny in the air. Their eyes glowed like embers in the darkness, their forms shifting between wolf and something more terrible. The trees themselves seemed to lean away as they passed, their branches becoming skeletal fingers pointing toward the stone circle at the valley's heart. Elias's claws dug into the earth as another wave of agony racked his body. The transformation wasn't coming, it was already happening, but differently this time. His bones didn't break, they reshaped, flowing like molten silver beneath his skin. His jaw elongated, his spine curved, his teeth grew sharper than any natural predator's. The first raindrops hit like bullets, stinging his exposed flesh. Then came the hail shards of ice that cut his fur and drew blood. The storm wasn't natural, it was a living thing, breathing down his neck, herding him toward his fate. As he reached the standing stones, lightning struck the central altar. The blast threw him backward, his body skidding through mud and his own blood. When his vision cleared, the shadows between the stones had deepened, coalescing into a massive, familiar shape. The original white wolf stood waiting, its ghostly fur crackling with stormlight, its eyes holding centuries of hunger. The final test had begun.
The last hunt.
The storm's fury reached its crescendo as Elias faced the spectral white wolf across the blood-soaked altar stone. Lightning etched their shadows against the ancient monoliths, to monstrous figures frozen in a primal standoff. The ghost wolf's eyes burned with cold fire, its translucent fangs dripping with memories of 1,000 kills. Elias's muscles coiled like steel springs, his own claws digging grooves into the rain-slicked turf. The talisman skull around his neck pulsed with unnatural heat, searing his flesh with every heartbeat. Blood both his and the pack's run in rivulets down his mangled fur, mixing with the torrential downpour to paint the sated ground crimson. The attack came without warning. One moment the phantom wolf stood motionless, the next, its jaws clamped around Elias's throat with spectral force. Agony exploded through his nervous system as the creature's teeth bypassed flesh to bite directly into his soul. Visions of ancient hunts flooded his mind, villages burning, children screaming, the taste of innocent blood coating his tongue. Not memories, promises. With a roar that shook the standing stones, Elias retaliated. His claws raked through the apparition's mist-like form, finding unexpected purchase. The white wolf howled a sound that shattered nearby trees into splinters. Black ichor sprayed from its wounds. The liquid burned where it landed, eating through stone and flesh alike. The battle became a whirlwind of tooth and shadow. Elias's body failed him piece by piece. A hind leg snapped, ribs caved inward, one eye blinded by spectral closet he fought on. Every wound only fed the rage burning in his chest, the human part of him shrinking beneath the onslaught of pure animal fury. As the blood moon reached its zenith, Elias made his final lunge. His jaws closed on the phantom's throat just as its claws found his heart. Light erupted from the point of impact, illuminating the entire forest in stark white relief. When the darkness returned, only one wolf remained standing, and the altar stone wept blood.
Eclipse of fate.
The forest held its breath as the moon began to die. Elias stood atop the sacrificial altar, his once white fur now permanently stained the color of rusted iron. The phantom wolf's essence pulsed within him, a second heartbeat of ancient power. that made his muscles twitch with barely contained violence. Around the stone circle, the remnants of his pack cowered, their muzzles pressed to the earth in submission. They no longer smelled like wolves, vehemently like meat waiting to be torn open. The eclipse crept across the moon's face like a black tide, each passing moment draining the world of light and warmth. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, twisting into shapes that slithered at the edge of vision. The air itself grew thick, heavy with the metallic tang of impending doom. From the forest edge, a familiar scent cut through the carnage stink fear, sweat, and herbal tinctures. Leora, his sister, the last tether to his humanity, she stepped into the clearing, her hunting knife glinting in the dying light. Not raised in threat, but trembling at her side, her eyes same shade as their mother's locked onto his, seeing past the monster to the brother beneath. Elias's jaws ached with the need to snap her spine. His claws flexed, carving fresh grooves in the blood-slick stone. The phantom Wolf's voice whispered in his mind, promising endless power. If only he'd complete the final sacrifice. The eclipse reached totality. Darkness swallowed the world, and in that perfect blackness, Elias made his choice.
The White Wolf's legacy.
Dawn bled across the sky in streaks of crimson and gold, illuminating the carnage left in the eclipse's wake. The standing stones stood as silent witnesses, their surfaces now carved with fresh claw marks that wept slow beads of scarlet. At their center, the altar stone had split clean down the middle, a jagged fissure that gaped like an open wound in the earth. Elias knelt amidst the destruction, his monstrous form shrinking with each labored breath. The transformation reversed itself. Reluctant lie bones snapping back into human angles, fur retracting into scarred flesh, jaws shrinking to contain only human teeth. His hands, once tipped with savage claws, now trembled as they pressed against the blood-soaked ground. The bodies told the story of the night's final hours. Some were clearly wolf-massive, twisted shapes with their throats torn out. Others were human, their limbs bent at impossible angles, their faces frozen in expressions of terror. And at the edge of the clearing, the pack survivors licked their wounds, their eyes reflecting the dawn light with an eerie golden glow. The change in them was permanent. Elias's legacy. A soft rustle came from the tree line. Leora emerged, her hunting knife still clutched in one white-knuckled hand. The other pressed against her side, where dark blood seeped between her fingers. Her eyes locked onto Elias's, and in them he saw no fear, only sorrow, and something worse, understanding. She had seen what he had become, what he had done. Elias opened his mouth, but no words came, only a low, broken sound that was neither human nor wolf. The sound of something torn between two worlds, belonging to neither. As the sun climbed higher, burning away the last shadows of night, the first howl rose from the forest, not a challenge, not a threat, a call. Elias turned his face toward the sound, his scars burning in the daylight. The choice was made, the hunt was over. The legend was just beginning.